Thank you for coming back to my channel today. If you're new here, and I know that quite a number of you are, welcome. My name is Colleen, and I am pleased that you've stumbled across this recipe today. It's been a while since I did a bread machine recipe, and I thought today might be a good day to do that. Now, I do my bread machine baking recipes a little different because I don't use the machine to bake the bread. I found that we didn't like the shape of the bread, and we didn't like the texture when all the sides had been baked so heavily. We didn't like the texture of the crust all the way around, and we were really missing that old-fashioned loaf of bread that you get from your oven. So before I spent too much time wishing and dreaming it was different, I put it on the shelf, and honestly I didn't touch it for a couple of years, and then I got it out and I thought, it's got a dough setting. I'll just make the dough in the machine because my wrists and hands it's hard to do that 10 minutes in eating. So I'll try that and see how it turns out, and it's fantastic. So I've adapted a lot of old recipes, my old recipes, to bread machine recipes that I can mix the dough in the bread machine and then go through the process of allowing it to rise in there on the dough setting, bringing it to the counter, rolling it into a loaf shape, like taking the air out a bit and rolling it into a loaf shape into the loaf pan. Then I let it proof for about 45 minutes to an hour, then into a 375 degree oven. Well, most of them are 375 degrees. And a perfect loaf is done in 35 minutes. So today we're going to make a rosemary, it's an Italian style bread. It's got fresh rosemary in it as well as Italian seasoning. And then I'm going to turn that around into a delicious sandwich so that I have something for my lunch today. So let's get started with the bread part of this and get going. So I'll gather up everything I need and I'll be right back after this. Okay, let's get started on this. First off, we need 1 cup of warm water. And I test the water on my wrist. If I can't really feel it running on my wrist, it's just about perfect. I'm baking, so I really do measure for baking. Cooking, you know, you can throw this in and that in, but these recipes for baking have all been very carefully tested for baking purposes. We need a tablespoon of sugar, or sugar substitute, I guess, if maybe honey you could use, if you don't want to use white sugar. Okay, so we've got a tablespoon of that. We need 1.5 teaspoons of quick rapid yeast. I use the quick rise and find it most effective. I do not use bread machine yeast, and I do not use bread flour. The recipes that I share with you are all made with quick rise yeast and all-purpose flour, good old AP. Now, I also need in there some butter, 3 tablespoons. Now, this I may be a little more guessy about. 2, 3. And an egg. I've got 1, I think this is considered an extra large egg, but it's a large egg at any rate. A large egg will do. And then we're starting with the flour. I think I've got enough flour in my flour container for this purpose today. And I do the old-fashioned home economics measure where I cut it in to make sure that I don't have it, it's not packed down in there, and that it's not too high. And I use the right cup. I know that they all hold the same thing, but you can't cut your flour. What did I do with the water glass? Right there. So you can't cut the top of this off. So while you're in there trying to get it to the perfect level, you're packing it down. So make sure that you have the right kind of tools for the job. There. We've got that in there. I am going to add a little bit of a surprise ingredient maybe. I'm going to add a half of a teaspoon of pepper, or thereabouts. I'm going to add a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, and this is just your regular mixed variety Italian seasoning. So it's got basil and rosemary and oregano in it, and it's good and tasty. I'm going to add about 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, or a teaspoon if you like it a little saltier. And lastly, I am going to add some fresh rosemary, mostly because I just happen to have some in the fridge, but also because the fresh rosemary in there just seems to brighten up the whole thing. And I just love the way it makes this bread taste and smell while you're cooking it. You know that wonderful smell you get from rosemary? Okay, I don't need that stem. And I'm going to cut this up really, really fine. So it'll just take me a minute to do that. I want to shout out and say thank you to everybody who was so kind to Gino and I, and sent us all the well wishes and kind thoughts for our 200th video that Gino was a part of. I was really tickled that he agreed to come and do that with me. He definitely, it took him a while, but he was happy to do it, and we do so enjoy working in the kitchen together, so I hope that came through in the video. And now maybe that the ice has been broken, I can get him to join me for other videos in the future. Although I have to say he's away most of the week, and that's when I do most of my filming, so probably not anything really soon. But I did enjoy having him here. Thank you for being so kind. Okay, so that's about a tablespoon of chopped rosemary. And in it goes into the bread machine. Now, I've got everything in here except, no, everything. I thought I forgot the egg, but it's in there too. I've got everything I need in there to make a good loaf of bread. I am not entirely sure what size this loaf pan is. I know it's smaller than my previous one, but it suits my purposes just fine. Anything that I can make with 3.5 cups of flour or under, any recipe, I can make in here just fine. So I'm happy with that. So now I'm going to put this into the bread machine, and I'm going to go through the settings till I get to the dough setting, which the cycle on this one happens to be number 10. On my old one it was number 8. So if you're getting your bread machine out, make sure you have a look for the dough setting, because it's a different number on each different one. But on this particular brand, this Hamilton Beach, the dough cycle kneads the bread, kneads it all together for the first 10 minutes. So if you're going to make additions of things like raisins or cranberries into your bread, you wouldn't do it in this particular setup. But if you wanted to make a cranberry and orange bread or something along that line, I always wait until it's been mixing about 6 minutes, 5 to 6 minutes, and then I add in my fruit, because otherwise it gets battered around a lot and doesn't hold shape very well. So some of the bread makers on the market have a dispenser on them where you can add fruits and things like that to, and at a set time it will dump them in. I didn't go fancy at all. This is the kind that many of us got for Christmas gifts up to 20 years ago, and they didn't have those fancy little additions on them. Some of them have a timer that goes off and beeps and says, okay, if you're going to add something, now's the time to do it. This one's just simple, bare bones, and I find that for all the different breads I make, it's all I need. So I'm going to get it in here, I'm going to get it set on number 10, and I'm going to let it go. The total time that it takes in the machine is an hour and 30 minutes. An hour and 30 minutes, yeah. An hour and a half, and then it's ready to get out of the machine, kneaded into the pan, into the oven. I will show you the rest of this process, but right now I'm going to get this done, and then I'll come back. Okay, my machine has finished the cycle, my bread machine, and I am just greasing up a regular, I think it's 4 by 9 inch loaf pan, and making sure that I have it all greased. And then I'm going to turn out my bread onto my clean counter. You can see it raised quite well. This is a softer dough, probably because of the egg and the butter, but whatever the reason, it is softer. Does require a little careful handling, so it's not stuck to everything. But this is perfectly the way you want it to be. Now, I might actually have to get a little bit of flour out, because it's a little stickier than I want it to be. You should be able to handle it. And right now, that's a jar. So I've just picked up a little flour. I don't want to add a whole lot of flour to the situation, but I do need to be able to handle it. And I need to get that annoying little paddle out of there. There it is. And I'm just going to work it a little bit. There we go. Now we have a little flour all the way around. And taking a lot of the big air out, because we do want this to rise again. Still a little sticky right there. If it's sticking to your fingers, like really sticking, then just add a little flour. Now I don't know if you can see this very well, but you can see the flecks of Italian seasoning and rosemary in there, the fresh rosemary. In fact, some of it's sitting on top. It smells really good. Into the pan it goes. I'm going to cover this. I'm going to let it rise until it's doubled in size, which takes 45 minutes to an hour. Don't be afraid to leave it a little longer if you think that it needs to rise a little more. I like to have it, you know, probably a good inch over top of the pan. And then I turn the stove on. 375 degrees, and I am going to cook it for exactly 35 minutes. And it will be beautiful, perfect loaf. I'll show you what it looks like. Have a look at this. This is a beautiful light loaf of bread that makes wonderful sandwich bread because it has flavor embedded in the bread. I'm just going to finish it off with a little butter on the crust. And then I'm going to set it aside to cool it. And then we can get busy and make some sandwiches. You can make it too. I hope that you gather up your bread makers from the basement or the storage area, wherever you have them, and you get busy and you make some delicious bread for your family. I have lots of bread recipes there on my YouTube channel. Maybe I'll try and link them all below. I think there's 10 or so, something like that. And I will link them below so that you can get started on your journey to making your own bread using a bread maker. Well, here I am back. The bread has gone through the kneading process, which, by the way, took longer than I thought it would. My old machine, it took a lot less time. I think it took around 20 minutes to finish kneading the bread. So if you find yours is taking a little longer, that was my bad. I wasn't paying attention before, and I am now. So I started this yesterday because I wanted to test this loaf and make sure that it would work it would hold up for this sandwich that I want to make. And oh, it smells so fantastic. I don't know if you can see, but it's got a really good crumb to it. And I am just going to cut a couple of pieces. I've got everything going here or ready to go that I need for this sandwich. I am not eating this by myself. I am sharing this with Peyton today because it would be way too much for me alone. Let me set that aside. I've got my pan going because I'm going to kind of press it a little bit. And in fact, I'm going to start off by putting some chicken just here in this pan. Now this is leftover from a rotisserie chicken that we had the other night. And if I have leftovers, I usually just cut the meat, put it into little freezer bags and into the freezer. But I knew I was going to try this, so I didn't put it into the freezer. So this is going to be a cranberry brie, and I've just purchased a brie cheese from the store, and I didn't buy a big wheel because this recipe certainly doesn't need a big wheel. And I'm just going to set the bread aside, and I'm going to set about cutting this up. This melts up so nice that it's perfect for this application. Now, let's get the cheese on the one side. Oh, my mouth is watering because I know how great this tastes. Yummy. I think one more little slice will do it. And that's a lot of cheese, so it's a good thing I'm sharing it. Set that aside. And on the other side, I am going to put some of my homemade cranberry sauce. Now I know I don't have enough in one jar, so I'm going to open the other jar and spread it all out. I'm going to be pretty generous with it. Let's see if I can get into this jar. Oh, yes. Spread it on for good coverage here. I don't know, there's something about cranberries makes it feel so special. Okay, now let's get the chicken on. And think I'm going to put the hot chicken right onto the cheese. So that'll give it a chance to get going as well. And I think I picked out the perfect amount of chicken to go on here. That way it folds nicely. I'm going to add a little bit of butter to this pan instead of trying to butter the bread. On this goes, and on that goes. Now, because, do you see the depth of that? I'm going to have to bring in the troops to help me eat this, no doubt about it. I'm going to turn that down a little bit because my butter is getting browned. And I don't have any kind of a food press, so I'm going to use this little pot, and I've filled it half full of water. And no, I am not going to walk off and trust that it's going to stay there, because it probably wouldn't, and then I'd have water everywhere and ruin my sandwich, which I'm working so hard to create. I hope you folks are all well, and that your new year has started off in a fantastic fashion, and that it keeps you well, healthy, and happy into 2025. I think we have quite a year ahead of us with all the conditions in the world, both in Canada and the United States. Okay, let's have a look at this beast. Put that back there, and I still need it. Let me see, beautifully browned. I'm going to go back in with a little more butter as soon as I figure out where I put it. And then I'm going to flip this over. See how beautiful that looks? Oh my gosh. And let's get some of this stuff tidied up. I don't need this anymore. I will need my board to cut on. I would say I'm letting this go about a minute or a minute and a half on each side. I want the brie to have a chance to warm through. Now I'm going to grab a plate. I looked at the size of the little bread and butter plates, and I knew that big sandwich wasn't going to fit on there. So let's check this out and see how it's going. Oh, it's going beautifully. And the cheese is sticking to the bread. So let's give it a try. Out we come. I'm just going to shut this off. Move this out of my way. And here we go. Now, I'm trying to decide which knife is going to be best and which way to cut this. Well, I'm going to cut it straight across to start with. And look at that. Doesn't that look delicious? And I know it's going to be delicious. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video today. This is a chicken with brie and cranberry sandwich made on pepper Italian rosemary bread. I hope I got all those things in there. Anyway, I think that it would be easy to make the bread the day before, which I did. And then if you're using leftover chicken, it doesn't take long to put this sandwich together. Now you could have this with a bit of salad if you chose, or if you're a chip eater, maybe some chips. I don't know, it looks to me like that's going to be a full meal for me. So take care, everybody. I hope that you have a fantastic week until I see you next. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the little bell, because some of you are missing my videos because you haven't hit the little bell. So hit the little bell. Comment. I love to read your comments. I don't always get to answer everyone, but I read them all. So please continue to do that. look for the recipe for this bread in the description box below, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.